All systems go. Cleared for takeoff.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Ship It Nation MMA show here, breaking down the fights for Saturday, July 14th. 13 fights. We had one fight come off the card. 13 is a solid number for DFS purposes, so hopefully we stay there. Once you get down to that 12, 11 number, not as fun, not as appealing, but we do have 13 fights. Again, not the greatest card, especially coming off the pay-per-view card last week, which is just absolutely phenomenal. But again, prize pool is pretty solid here. Standard week-to-week stuff in terms of the size. Joined by my guy, Big Marley. What's going on? Any initial thoughts here on this card this week?
Yeah, not my favorite card on paper, but we talked before the show that that's sometimes a good thing because a lot of people will just overlook it. They won't put in the normal work, and we can find a little bit of edge that way. I put in as much work on this card as I do on all the others, so I feel pretty good about it. I think there's some fights we can target. There's a few fighters I like as well, so I've made 5 or so hand-built lineups, and I feel pretty good about them so far, so I'm looking forward to keep building more and more and see where it gets. But we got $500K in the pool on DraftKings still, $100K up top, so even though it's a bad card, we got some good prizes.
Yeah, solid prize pool. In terms of the fights, I mean, it did look like there's some very solid, like inside the distance numbers that we'll get to when we go through fight by fight. For me, a lot of these guys are unknowns. Like, it's relatively new to UFC. I follow it. I know the big name guys, but Marley's going to lead us through the fight by fight breakdown. I'm going to try to apply some DK lineup construction knowledge, and we'll go from there. But we'll have our full complement of content up on the website. A lot of it is already up. We have the core report, which features core plays from myself, Title, Big Marley, cash plays as well. We have the tier rankings where it just go through tier by tier, the upper tier, middle, lower, and then Title Town kind of ranks those guys. Slate info, which is free to the public. If you go over there, you can get into the slate info without any sort of package. The slate plan, Title going through, kind of highlighting some of his favorite plays, some underweights, some cores, and then his fight by fight breakdown. And then Marley, his piece of content is a fight rankings, basically fight by fight breakdown, kind of ranks each fight, and then also additionally ranks each fighter and also picks who he thinks is going to win the fight. So a lot of content over there at shipitnation.com. $59 for a monthly package gets you everything on the website. $5.99 for the annual package also gets you everything on the website. The plan here is obviously to always improve and add on to our product. MMA is a great example of that. We opened up shop, didn't have MMA, brought on Title, brought on Big Marley. Now we have the top MMA team in the industry. So we're very excited to offer up this product. NFL right around the corner, got best ball as well, which we just added. So a lot of fun stuff, a lot of good stuff still to come. Let's get into the fight. So we got 13. We'll kind of break them down fight by fight. Marley will give his takes. I'll kind of see how we can apply it to DFS, go from there and see if we can find some winners. And I will be mispronouncing a lot of names, just so you guys know, because I've never heard of a lot of these people, but that does not matter. Melzik Bagdaresian, 9,200 minus 165 going up against Tucker Lutz, 7K. This is basically a pick'em to end inside the distance. It's showing minus 110. That's close enough to a pick'em for me. What are your thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, this is one where they opened the line, or I guess they opened the salaries on DraftKings, and then money just keeps coming in on Lutz. So Bagdasarian's now minus 150 on the money line, but he's still 9.2K over on DraftKings. So we got some negative value on him, but we got some value on Lutz. And I was already picking Lutz in this one. I think this is kind of a striker versus grappler matchup. I do like Bagdasarian on the feet. He's very dangerous, especially in round one. But everything he throws is with bad intentions, and he's going to slow down as the fight moves along. Not necessarily gas out, just he won't have as much power in the second and third rounds if it gets there. but he could put Lutz away in the first round and make the optimal that way. If he doesn't get the first round knockout, I just don't see him paying off that $9,200 salary. So I don't think I'm going to have a whole lot of Bagdasarian for that reason. And then Lutz at $7K, he's the guy who should be looking to wrestle. And if you win a wrestling match in the UFC, you're usually going to score well. So I think any win for Tucker Lutz should score over 10x that $7K salary. But if he can win all 3 rounds with wrestling or get a submission at some point, he has 100-point upside as well. So Lutz is my preferred play in all formats. But it was more the line talking me into it, and now we got that value on him as well. So the field will be on him too, but I'd still rather get leverage to him over Bagdasarian with the new value that we have.
Yeah, so the one thing that immediately stands out to me, anytime you see this sort of situation where a guy in the 9K range is only basically minus 160, 170 to win, the underdog is going to be pretty highly owned in the favorite, especially on this card. We have a lot of guys in the 9K range. Their ownership's just going to come down. So Bagdasarian, have to imagine, pretty low on. If you have a strong lean on Bagdasarian, you're going to have big time leverage on the field because that ownership is just going to go down with this line. I mean, you rarely see a guy at 7K, what are they, plus 135 right now. So he's going to be owned. But again, you have to take all things into account. Like, does his style score well? And based on what you're saying, it sounds like at 7K, if he wins and his style, I mean, right out of the gate, this is a guy that has the upside to certainly be in the optimal lineup when it's all said and done. So that's kind of, my take on it. But again, Bagdasarian, if you like this guy, you think he's got a good chance, you're going to get him at low ownership. And there's no doubt about it because we have a lot of guys in the 9K range. We'll keep it moving. We have Melquiziel Costa versus Austin Lingo. Costa 9,100, Lingo 71. Costa, he's favored minus 240. Again, very similar inside the distance, minus 110. So pretty much a pick 'em to finish inside the distance. Any interest here in this one?
This is actually one of my least favorite fights to target, probably because I disagree with Vegas. I would favor this to go the distance, but it's 2 strikers, which is what I really don't like. I prefer when there's a wrestler in there who could get takedowns, a lot of top control time, and score well in a decision. But if this one goes to a decision, I don't expect more than 1 or 2 takedowns for either guy. Definitely no real top control time. So I just don't think that they're going to score well. And Costa at 9.1K, that's probably going to be priced out of my player pool, to be honest with you. And Lingo's just a boxer. He's not going to be doing a whole lot other than throwing hands, and is usually throwing haymakers at the head. So Costa has more striking tools. I just think he has more ways to win the fight. I just don't agree with how wide the line is. I would line it a little bit closer to pick him. So for that reason, it's going to be Lingo or pass for me. But I'll be looking to other fights more so than this one. Lingo will only make my player pool as a live dog, but I don't expect him to score well unless he gets an early finish.
Yeah, and I guess, 2 fights out of the gate where you're seeing a path for these 7K guys to potentially win. So I'm guessing overall this seems like a card where you feel that we have some underdogs that are live to win.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the whole card, I would say on the betting lines, it's almost all dog or pass for me. There's not a lot of favorites on this card I would want to put my trust in. But on DraftKings, it's perfect. You can just mix around all the ones that have high ceilings, and there's no one I feel good enough about that I want to go all in. So I'm fine mixing my exposure around, building as many lineups as I feel good about, and we'll just see where it goes. Hopefully I get a lucky one.
Yeah, certainly. Another fight up next where so the first 4 fights, it looks like all 9K fighters. We have Victoria Dudikova, 9,300, minus 180, facing Estella Nunes at 6,900. Another fight that's right there at that minus 110, so pretty much a pick 'em to finish inside the distance. What are your thoughts here on this fight?
This is one I do like for DraftKings, more so on the Dudikova side. This is a pure striker versus grappler matchup where Dudikova needs to get the takedowns early and often because Nunes will pick her apart on the feet. But Nunes' best work comes in round 1. I do think that's her best path to victory here, would be a first-round knockout. So I will have some lineups with her for that reason. I think that's somewhat in play, and I also don't think she's going to have any ownership on this card. But if she doesn't get the first round knockout, I think she's getting taken down and controlled on the ground throughout the whole fight, or getting finished in the second or third round after she starts to give up. So I prefer Dudikova in all formats, and she has a style that should score well on DraftKings. This is her first UFC fight, though. In the Contender Series, she had 4 takedowns, 10 minutes plus of control time, and I think she tore her ACL in the second round of that fight. So I like that she was able to keep going with that torn ACL, getting the fight to the ground where she needs to get the fight, and she would have scored well. She had like 117 ground strikes in that one. So I'd imagine a fresh Dudikova, older, maybe more knowledge. I like her on DraftKings in all formats, but at the same time, Nunes will probably be maybe sub 10%. So I'm fine getting a little bit of leverage there, going 10, 15%, because if she gets the first round knockout, she's on the optimal lineup.
So not like a typical women's fight where, you're expecting to go to the distance, kind of, there's no doubt about it. A lot of these women fights, lower scoring stuff. So you do see some upside here in this one.
Yeah. And with Dudikova, I don't think she needs to finish to score 100 plus, which is what I always like to target, wrestlers who could score well in a decision. But I do think she has a lot of finishing upside the later this fight gets. I don't see Nunes winning a decision. I just don't see her keeping the fight on the feet long enough where she's going to be able to score points and impress the judges. So I think she has to get a knockout early. If it's not in the first round, it probably has to be right at the start of the second before Dudikova can get a takedown. But Nunes has nasty striking. Like I like her striking in general. It's just a clash of styles. This is a tough matchup for a striker against somebody who does not want to strike at all.
Yeah, and another number that does kind of stand out, like the plus 155 on Nunes at 6,900. A lot of times on these MMA cards, someone 6,900 is like plus 300, plus 400 to win. So you got someone under 7K sitting at plus 155. I mean, has to be a little bit live. So that's certainly something that does stand out. And then in terms of like roster construction with so many potential live dogs here, is this a slate? I mean, always you can leave money on the table for MMA, but is this a slate that kind of leads you in that direction a little bit more this week?
Yeah, I think I've built 5 hand-built lineups, and I don't know that any of them have 0 left on the table.
Yeah.
If so, I think it'd be one of the 5. So, yeah, I do like leaving money on the table because I think there's a lot of live dogs on this card.
Yeah. All right, Evan Elder, 9,400. He's minus 300 going against Gennaro Valdez, 6,800. This fight, our first one that is big-time favored to end inside the distance at minus 300. What are your thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good GPP fight to target. And any Gennaro Valdez fight in the UFC is going to be a good GPP fight to target because he is balls to the walls right out of the gates. He has about 2 or 3 minutes of gas, and he's going to bring the same thing in every fight. That's like a 3 to 7 punch combo. And if those don't knock out his opponent, he's going for a takedown right afterwards. And if he gets the takedown, he's going for the ground and pound finish or trying to grab a rear naked choke. Always live for an early finish, but after like the 2 or 3 minute mark, this guy starts to gas out, and he just looks worse and worse as the fight moves along. In his first UFC fight, he was knocked down 4 times. And then in his second UFC fight, he was taken down 6 times. So there's just a lot of ways to score well against this guy. So I prefer Elder. I just think he's the better fighter everywhere. And the longer this fight goes, the better he's going to look and the more points he can score against a gassed fighter. So I'm Elder in cash and GPP. He's my leverage play. But if Valdez wins any fight in the UFC, he's going to score 100 plus points probably every single time because it's likely a first round finish. I can't fade that. I do want some exposure there. So this is a fight I want in like 3/4 of my GPP lineups, if not more. And I would think, 50 to 60% Elder, around 20% Valdez, something like that.
Yeah, like that call. Seems like some big upside here. Now, I mean, with a guy like Elder, 9,400, we haven't gotten to the fight yet, but the Jack Della fight, it's like, man, he's probably projected to put up a big boy score. Like, can you get enough of both these guys? Because these seem like the two with the big upside. So I guess when we get to that fight, we can kind of compare it a little bit, but we'll keep it moving. Alex Munoz facing Carl Deaton. Munoz, 8,300, minus 175 in this fight. Deaton coming in 7,900. The one thing that just stands out to me from a line perspective is a lot of times these $8,300, $7,900 fights you see pretty closely lined, minus 120, minus 130. This one all the way up to minus, 175 for Munoz. So that definitely stands out to me. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I believe he's actually up to minus 195 now. I'll update the slate info after the podcast, which will be on the site. But yeah, man, whenever you see that 8,300 and he's minus 200, it's hard to pass up on. So I like Munoz in all formats here. It's really Munoz or pass for me because Deaton, he really doesn't do anything special. He's just the more experienced fighter. He's been fighting the last 2 years while Munoz has been out with the torn ACL. So that's really the worry on the Munoz side, where I don't know if I'd want to trust this guy with a minus 200 price tag. But Munoz is the guy who should be looking to wrestle. He's got knockout power on the feet. And if he can get the fight to the ground, not only can he control the fight and score well in the decision, but he could grab a rear naked choke in any round. We just saw Deaton completely dominated on the mat in his last fight, his UFC debut. And I've seen him taken down easily on the regional scene as well. So I think there's a clear path to victory for Munoz, and it's wrestling, and wrestling scores well on DraftKings. I like Munoz in all formats. It's just, do we want to trust a guy who's coming off of a torn ACL? And I guess there were complications with the torn ACL as well. So it's been 2 years. Is he the same guy? I don't know, but the ownership will be there. If there's a reason to fade him, it's because of the ownership, but he has a style that should win this fight more times than not. And I like him here. And I'm going to pass on Deaton.
So yeah, in terms of like ownership and whatnot, like very clear, Munoz is going to get a ton more ownership than Deaton. So pretty similar to a fight. I think the first fight that we talked about, if you got to read and you like Deaton, I mean, it's going to be a strong leverage option because everyone's going to be going to move, especially with that line even moving more in his direction, like you said. I mean, it just continues to get there. This fight, he could be minus 200 by the time this thing kicks off. And at 8,300, you just don't see that every day. So big ownership on him, probably not a lot on Deaton. But yeah, I mean, I'll be playing a lot of Munoz as well because, man, it's tough not to. I mean, 8,300, it's just that sweet spot price tag, basically cheaper than the average roster spot. You got a lot you can do by plugging in that 8,300 guy that's sitting at, minus 200. So I'll have a lot. Again, the ownership difference between these guys will be pretty substantial despite the prices being close. Maxim versus Tyson Nam. Maxim 9,600. He's minus 425, looking like the second biggest favorite on the card. This fight is projected to finish inside the distance at minus 185. What do you got here in this one?
Yeah, this is a fight I don't see me targeting too much, but it's going to be Azaitar or pass. I'm never on Tyson Nam. He's got big time power, but he's only a striker. He's not going to be looking to wrestle. He's very low volume. So it's first round or bust for him in every fight, but he's had like 3 first-round knockouts. So I've been burned before. I just don't really want to trust him here. At 39 years old, it's going to be the same game plan for him, a technical kickboxing match. But Azat has that same thing. He's pretty good on the feet, but he's low volume. So he's more in play for the knockout if this is going to be a striking match. But for him to look like a minus 425 favorite, he's going to have to wrestle. And he is a pretty good wrestler. He's a solid grappler. And he is aggressive when he gets the fight to the ground. It's just that he's too patient for me. I don't know that he's going to get the fight to the ground in the first round, or if he wants to get the fight there at all. If he's winning the striking match, maybe he just wants to keep it there, and he's not going to be doing enough minute to minute to score well. So at 9,600, I'd rather pay up for JDM or pay less for Elder, and I just don't see me getting too much Maxim. But it would be him if I was going to throw either guy in my lineup, cash or GPP, because Nam is just a fade every single time for me. His style, we're low volume. You need an early knockout to have any chance of scoring well. If he wins a striking-based decision, he probably doesn't even 10x this 6.6K salary. So it's just a all-time fade for me, and I don't know that we're going to see him in the UFC if he loses this fight.
Yeah. Maxim, I mean, in order to be on the optimal, there's a lot of big boy fighters that he's going to have to beat. He's going to have to go beat JDM. Like you said, he's going to have to beat Evan Elder in terms of his fantasy score to be on the optimum. Because a lot of times you're not going to see multiple guys, 9,500 and above guys, 9,400 and above guys being on the optimal lineup. So you'd have to feel good about him putting up a big boy score, and you're kind of indicating that you don't necessarily see that. If you guys are watching, please do us that favor, hit the like, hit the subscribe, helps us out a ton. The more support we get on this channel, the more content that we will be posting. So please hit the like and subscribe. We're about halfway through. Keep it moving here. We got Island Perez. Not sure if that's the way you pronounce that first name. 8,800 minus 220 going against Ashley Evan Smith, 7,400. This fight is expected to go to the judges. Basically, what is it? Plus 130 to see the judge, or favored to see the judges. So minus 130 to see the judges. Pretty big price tag on Perez. Smith 7,400. What do we got here in this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna be more so on the Perez side. Money's been coming in on her all week long. We haven't seen Ashley Evan Smith in 2 years. She's 36 years old. She didn't look great the last time we saw her either. So I don't expect a better version of her. But in this matchup, I think she's the better striker. I don't know that she's going to get a finish. So I don't see her scoring a whole lot of points if she does win a striking decision here. But I think she could maybe beat Perez to the takedown and do well in top control. So at 7.4K at low ownership, I'm okay with some Evan Smith exposure. But Perez is the style I like. She wants to get the fight to the ground, and when she does, she's aggressive. She's going for a ground and pound. She's landing a lot of strikes, and she just mauls girls on the regional scene. Evan Smith is not great off her back, so I think Perez could have a lot of success in top control if she's able to get the fight down. So I like her to win the fight. I like her to score well at 8.8K. I'd honestly rather have her over Azat. So she's going to be my leverage play in this one, but I'm cool with some hedge exposure to Smith just in case she does beat her to the takedowns. Perez will have the ownership. I don't think Evan Smith will. And Perez just hasn't shown me enough to think that she can just maul everybody in the UFC. That's just regional scene, low-level competition that she's done that to so far.
Any projected ownership on Perez? Because I know a lot of times people tend to avoid those women fights if they can. So, I mean, maybe
I put her pretty high, close
Okay.
to the 30 range.
Okay.
I'm going to adjust it again later because I already see some things I want to change. But I do think she will get the ownership because the money's been coming in on her all week. I think DraftKings ownership will follow.
Okay, very good. Big fight here coming up next. JDM, Jack Della, Maddalena facing off with Basil Hafez. 9,700 for JDM, minus 550. This fight is minus 800 to finish inside the distance. JDM is going to be probably the highest owned guy in the card. People make sacrifices through the lineup to get him in. He's the big name on this card, supposed to fight last week. Fight got canceled, stayed in Vegas, and got the fill-in fight here. So no doubt will be very popular. The name, the odds, the inside the distance odds. How are we going to handle this fight here?
Yeah, I think he's the best play on the slate if you can afford him. 9,700's usually not the easiest price tag to afford, but I think there's a lot of live dogs on this card, so I'll be able to get there a lot. I'm thinking I'll have him in 50% or more of my lineups. I'd lock him into cash games because he's the safest win. But you already said he's going to be the highest owned guy on the card, so that's a reason we can get away from him. And I do think this is kind of a tough matchup, especially early in the first round. This Hafez guy he's powerful. He's got muscles. He's looking for takedowns early. He can maybe land a big shot in the first round and knock JDM out, but it's more the wrestling that he's going to need to have success with. It's just that he's taking this fight on, 2 weeks notice. And when you get these powerful, explosive wrestlers on short notice, they just don't have 15 minutes of wrestling cardio. So I think he's like a first round or bust type of fighter, but I could see him winning the first round and then JDM coming in and knocking him out in the second round. And if he loses the first round, if he's on his back most of the time, he's not going to score much there. So then we're looking at a 70-point second round win bonus, probably a 10-point knockdown. we'll see how much he could do leading up to it. But I think there's reasons to fade him at 9,700 just to get away from the ownership. And then on Hafez, I'm okay with a little bit of exposure to him as well because he is a pretty good wrestler, which is JDM's weakness. If he does have cardio shape and can do it for 3 rounds, he's going to score well in any win. But I think it would be a first-round finish if he did get it done. And maybe that can happen. We see a lot of crazy stuff in the UFC. So I'll have some hedge exposure to Hafez, and I think he'll be unowned on the card. So I'll have a little leverage on that side. But I'll be right in line with the field at like 50, 60% ownership.
Yeah, Hafez, I'm assuming, virtually unowned. 6,500. I mean, you go 6,500, that does open up a lot of things for sure. So, we'll see. 5 more fights to go. Nazim Sadikov going up against Terrence McKinney, 8,700 versus 7,500 price tag. Sadikov, I guess that's my best guess at how you pronounce his name, minus 143. But the one thing that stands out here is the inside the distance, and the number is sitting at minus 600. I've seen McKinney fight, and they typically don't last very long. So that's why the number is sitting at minus 600 to finish inside the distance. I imagine this will be a very popular fight for those reasons. What do you got here?
Yeah, great GPP fight. Neither one of them are too highly priced, and that minus 600 fight ends inside the distance. It's going to be one we should target because McKinney, he's never been to a decision. I think he's only been to the 3rd round once, and it didn't even go a minute into that 3rd round. He's great. He's a great first-round fighter. He's dangerous on the feet. He's got solid wrestling, solid grappling in the first round, and then he just falls apart. I don't even know if it's a cardio thing, if it's a mental thing. It's a consistent thing, and that's the worry here. But he's always going to score well if he wins because it's early in fights. It's probably got a knockdown or takedowns leading up to it as well. And at 7,500, he's going to have a great chance at the optimal lineup if he wins this fight. So I do like McKinney. I think he is a better fighter in the first round, and he can finish this fight on the feet or the ground. So I'll get leverage to him. It's just that after the first round, Sadikov probably takes over. He probably wins the striking in the second and knocks him out either in the second or the third. And he would probably score well. But if he drops the first round, especially if it's off of his back through wrestling, it's the same thing as JDM. Maybe he just doesn't do enough leading up to the finish. And he's not a high volume striker. He's really not looking for takedowns. So he's not even really on the JDM level. So I'd rather have McKinney, and Sadikov's going to have the ownership. So I'll go a little bit underweight to him, but he could still finish the fight in any round. So I can't fade him. It's just I'd rather target the underdog in this one with that first round upside, whether it be a submission or knockout.
Yeah, seems like solid fight for GPPs, like you said. I mean, the minus 600 number, close spread for the most part. So yeah, I'll have a lot of this fight. 4 more to go. Francisco Prado, 8,200, minus 115, facing off with Otman Azaitar, 8K, minus 105. So basically a pick 'em here that is projected to finish inside the distance. You're looking at minus 360 to finish inside the distance. That is this 3rd best inside the distance odds on the fight. So we have a closely lined fight, supposed to finish inside the distance. The fighters are 8,200 and 8K. Without knowing much about these guys, I imagine this is going to be a very popular fight in DFS.
Yeah, I love this fight. This is my favorite fight to target on the card because it's the mid-range fight to target, and I just expect a car crash. These guys are both aggressive fighters. They come out hot, especially Azaitar. I don't even know that he has multiple rounds of cardio in him because he's just coming out. He's kill or be killed. And 18 of their 24 wins have ended in the first round. I really expect the same thing here. Azaitar is going to try and take Prado's head off. If he doesn't, he's either going to get his head taken off, or I think Prado could get takedowns here and win with some ground and pound or submission. I just don't expect this fight to take place for more than 5 to 8 minutes. A mid-range fight. If that happens, I think they have a good chance of being on the optimal lineup. So I think you just target whichever guy you're looking to target, get leverage on them, and then have some hedges on the other side. For me, I prefer Prado. He's just 11 years younger. I think he has the takedown upside. I think the longer this fight goes, the more it'll start to favor Prado. So I'm going to take more of a stand on him. Fighters who are 10 years younger or more wins 67% of the time. So if this is a 50-50 fight, I'll take those stats right there and just go side with Prado.
Yeah, I like that stat. What was that? So a 10-year age difference. The younger guy is what's the percent?
They win 2/3 of the time.
Damn, that's good to know. Actually, I like hearing that.
And I think we have 2 or 3 fights on this card that are 10-year age gaps.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, definitely a strong fight to target for DFS. There's no denying you want exposure in this one. If you're doing 150 line, it's probably on both sides. If you're hand building, I think you definitely want to get in here. Norma Dumont, 8,400 minus 140 facing Chelsea Chandler. Why can't we get more names like this? Dumont versus Chandler. Like, man, I'm good with these. 7,800. This fight is expected though to go to the judges. It is a women's fight. Any interest here?
My interest would more be in Chandler, but I don't have a whole lot of interest in the fight because I'm picking Dumont to win. I just think it'll be a very close fight. And Dumont is the more experienced fighter. I think she is the quicker fighter, the more crisp striker. I think she's going to be heavier in top control if she can get it there. But that could be what it comes down to, is who lands the takedown first. I think either one of them could score well if they get 2 or 3 rounds of wrestling in with a lot of ground and pound strikes. But my worry is that this is a clinch fest for 2 rounds, and they're just not scoring enough points with that control time, not getting enough strikes in there. So Dumont at 8.4K, I think she has to wrestle to have any upside, and she doesn't wrestle enough for me to feel good about that. So I'll target other favorites. And then Chandler, I think she can keep the fight close on the feet. It would be her volume against Dumont's power is how I see it going. But volume is what we like in the striking. I think she could have the same success in top control, which is great. So I would rather save the money, go 7,800 Chandler if I'm using this fight. And if you're picking her to win, I would use more Chandler. But since I'm picking Dumont to win, I'll just more so look to target other fights, and Chandler's in play as a live dog.
All right, very good. If you guys have not done so yet, please do us that favor. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Helps us to continue to bring you guys these shows for free on this channel. We continue to grow, and then the bigger we get, the more content that we'll be posting here. So please hit the like and subscribe. 2 to go. Jung Young Park facing off with Albert Derev. Park 8,500 minus 155. Our guy Albert 7,700. This fight is another one of those that's pretty much a pick 'em to finish inside the distance. On our sheet here, it's showing minus 107. That's pretty much a pick 'em. Any interest in this one?
Yeah, a little bit of interest in both sides, because I think there could be wrestling success with either guy. Duraev is going to have to wrestle because that's just the best part of his game. He doesn't really have 15 minutes of cardio as it is, but his striking is going to be too low volume. He's just not good enough of a striker to make me think he can knock out Park. So the only way I see him winning would be wrestling, but that scores well on DraftKings. So at 7,700, he's definitely in play. And if he can win 2 rounds with wrestling, that might be enough at that price tag. But Park, he does have 3 rounds of cardio. He's the better striker. He can strike at a high pace. And he's got wrestling chops as well. So if he can get Duraev down, I don't really see Duraev doing anything off his back. So I guess I don't really have a preference. I'm probably going to be in the 20% range on both of these guys, and it would be more of a last spot in my hand build lineups based on who fits. But I'm picking Park to win. I just think he has more ways to win. I think he can get 2 rounds done on the books. But Duraev was going to be the one I think might have more success in the first round. And if he can get it done with a submission or just keep that cardio going longer than he has in his last couple fights, he's got big upside. So I guess I'd rather just save the money. If I need the money, I'd rather just save it and put Duraev in. Yeah. But on a card with a lot of live underdogs, I don't know that I'll have a preference. I'm just fine being, 25% or so on both guys, but give me Park to win.
Yeah, seems like a pretty appealing fight. I mean, based on content that Title has up, he has some interest in it as well. So, it's one I'll most likely have some exposure to. If you guys aren't a member over at shipitnation.com, $59 for the month, $5.99 for the annual package, core report, tier rankings, Slate Info, which is free, Slate Plan, Fight Rankings, which Marley does on a weekly basis. So get on over there, check it out. One more fight to go. It's the 5-round main event. Not your typical main event caliber type fight here, but we have Holly Holm, 8,600. She's minus 175 going up against Bueno Silva, 7,600. This fight is expected to go to the judges, but again, we do have the 5 rounds here, which as we saw last week, those 5-round fights, they have the chance to put up some really, really big boy scores. In this case, I guess it would be big girl scores. Any interest here in this one?
Not as much as a typical main event, but yeah, I do have some interest on both sides. I think Holm is just the better overall fighter. I think she deserves to be favored here. I give her the striking edge, and I give her the wrestling edge as well. And if she can use that wrestling to keep the fight on the feet, I like her to win 4 rounds on the scorecards. But she's typically not a high volume striker. Her last 2 wins have been different. She beat up Irene Aldana for 5 rounds, and she scored 133 DraftKings points, which was awesome, but it was also unheard of from her at the time. And then her last victory, she wrestled. She had 4 takedowns, almost 11 minutes of top control time, scored 95 points in a 3-round decision. So if she did that in a 5-round fight, she has big-time upside. My worry is that Bueno Silva's a dangerous striker. She's got power, so I don't think you want to be pushing forward enough to land 150 significant strikes in this one. I could see Holm just playing it safe and kickboxing on the outside, not scoring a whole lot minute to minute. And I don't think she's going to want to wrestle with Bueno Silva either, because she's a dangerous grappler, and I give Silva the edge on the ground in this fight. So I kind of see Holm winning a striking match and scoring 70 to 80 points and just not making the optimal lineup. Main events usually come with a lot of ownership. I like to say close to 80% or so. Maybe not this one, but it'll still be more than half of the total lineup. So I think we can just get different and get away from this fight, hoping Holly does win a striking-based decision. But I'm more interested, I guess, in Bueno Silva, because if she wins, I do expect her to pay off her price tag. She's more likely to finish. She's got power on the feet. She could knock out a 41-year-old Holly Holm. She is very dangerous on the ground. It's just that she doesn't look to wrestle. That's the best part of her game, is her grappling, but she finally looked to wrestle in her last fight and got 2 takedowns, and that was her first 2 takedowns in the UFC, so I can't rely on her to get the fight to the ground. But if you're going to bet, money line finish only, meaning that it's only graded if there's a finish, it'd be a push and a decision. You got to lay minus 175 on Bueno Silva in that case. So I think there's a lot of finishing upside there for the underdog. She's 10 years younger than Holm, so we got that 67.
There it is.
That working out for us there as well. So I actually prefer the underdog. If I'm going to make one lineup and I had to use this fight, I would rather just throw her in it. But since I'm picking Holm to win, I'll just be low on the fight in general, hoping that she can get it done with a low score.
Yeah, it is interesting because anytime we have these cards where, the 1 5-round fight, people just naturally flock there, and in cash games specifically, in cash games, it's definitely probably the right play. But in GPPs, to take an underweight stance on the main event 5-round fight is going to be a little bit contrarian. So yeah, it's definitely something to look into for sure, and something that I'll explore when I go through and build my teams. But the ownership's coming to this one regardless. So we'll see. But it should be, for this card that's not all that appealing, doesn't have the big names. In terms of DFS, it does seem like a pretty dynamic slate. We have a few really big inside the distance numbers. We have a few underdogs that appear to be pretty live to win, and not only win, but put up big scores. A couple of these underdogs, it seemed like, are in spots where they could put up slate winning scores. So leaving salary on the table is something I'm going to explore when I go through building my teams, which I'll be building them tomorrow, and I'll have my core updated tomorrow as well. So very dynamic slate for not being all that appealing in terms of the names. So that's the one thing that definitely stands out to me. Marley, any final thoughts here on tomorrow's slate?
Yeah, I think DraftKings is what's going to make this card interesting. Hopefully we have some fun sweats. Hop in Discord. If you remember, it's always a fun sweat in there. We sweat everybody's chances, and hopefully we'll have some this week. I feel pretty good about this card for some reason. I don't know. The worse a card is on paper, oftentimes it ends up doing better at the end of the night. So we'll see how it goes. But I'll have all my DFS content up over at Ship It Nation in the next hour, I would say. So hit me up in Discord with any questions. Good luck to you, Hoop. Good luck to everybody listening.
Yeah, and good luck to everyone out there. Looking forward to seeing those Ship It Nation logos at the top of the leaderboard. That's going to do it here for the show. For Big Marley, I'm Hoop. Good luck tomorrow in your contest.